Welcome to another episode of the Sipping and Tripping podcast, where we connect with amazing people. Today's topic is about emotional intelligence, human design reflecting, and quantum healing. I'm your host, Desmond Black, and the person that's sipping and tripping with me today, um, she goes by the name of Amelie. That's how you say it?
Mhm.
Amelie Chavez. She is a person who has a desire to help people emotionally heal and connect. She has a strong gift for awareness and connection, piercing into the root of the problem easily to help mentor back into self connection. So, how are you doing today, and how was your weekend?
I'm doing wonderful today. Tuesdays are usually my busier days because I do my podcast in the morning and then have a slight break and then I go to dance class. I've been studying ballroom dancing, smooth ballroom dancing, so like
Mm.
waltz and I think we're doing waltz and rumba right now, but I've also learned tango, foxtrot, just anything that gets your body moving and not too much in the Latin, but definitely waltz is one of my favorites, so
Interesting, because I believe you mentioned that either today you had a stream today, either today or one of your other streams. I remember I remember hearing that or seeing it somewhere. Um, so So before you did you have rhythm? Like you always have rhythm, or is it something you just learned?
um, I mean, I've always had some rhythm. I spent most of my young adulthood singing karaoke.
Oh,
I really
okay,
like
okay.
karaoke. So, most of it was that, but I would go out clubbing, like I'm a millennial, so it was the good times.
Yeah, so it's crazy. Because like I never had rhythm. I always tell people I got three left feet. When I was younger, the only time I got on the dance floor, I had to be sipping on something. That's me. But I've seen so many classes where they was like, "Oh, we can get you dancing in a month," and I just never believed it. I was like, "You're not gonna catch me out there." I get in there, and people look at me like the elephant in the room.
Yeah. Um, so my dad was a drummer. I'm Native
Mm,
American, and so he was a drummer for many, many years. I think pretty much most of his life.
mm.
And so obviously he's got the rhythm keeper with the drums, and I think I just was born with it. Just have this nice spicy eclectic mix of of
Okay, okay.
rhythm keepers.
Well, that's good. Dancing is good. And a lot of people tell me like, "Hey, just live life. Just don't worry about how you look or what people think. Just dance if that's what you want to do." But I just can't do it.
Well, I in January, I just started the doing the ballroom dancing, like taking it very seriously, going to socials and taking lessons. So this is a huge new thing for me. Not that I didn't like learn salsa when I was younger, but it wasn't like super serious. So now I'm like very serious about it. And one of the reasons why it is so fascinating is when you're doing ballroom dancing, you have this lead who's typically the
Mm,
man, and then you have the follow who's typically the woman. And so as a follower, you're having to listen to like the energy and the body movements of your lead. And
right.
so, during socials, you get to dance with all different kinds of people, and you get to get a feel for them. I remember in January on my first social I went to, this is probably really funny, but, it's all ages in there, and his name was Ed, and Ed was in his 60s, and he was very tall, and, I'm short, I'm 5'2", 5'3". So, he's very tall, and he was very determined to have some dances with me. And I was like, I'm a beginner. I have no idea what I'm doing out here. You're just gonna have to like deal with my talk about tripping. I was tripping all over the place. I was like, but I'll do the best that I can or whatever. So we ended up dancing to the Godfather waltz. I don't know if people out there know what that is, but so we're there dancing, and by this time I have a little bit of a better flow. I'm a little bit more comfortable. I've done some dances, and you know, as followers, you kind of sit on the sidelines and you wait for the lead to come up and invite you onto the dance floor. And so he came up and he's like, "You're dancing with me to this song right now." And just with the command of that lead, and I was like, yes, like, okay. And I remember after that dance, it was a waltz. After that dance, my head was literally spinning, and I was like, "Dude, he could ask me to marry him right now and I'd say yes." Like, that's how incredible it can feel, like, once you let go of this perception of, like, that fear of being seen or fear of being humiliated. Like, once you let that go and just go with the flow of the lead, like, following that masculine energy, it's a beautiful thing. Like, literally, he could have said, "We're getting married." I'm like, "Okay." Wherever you wanna go, Ed, let's go.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Well, on my platform, I like to conversate, educate, and entertain. I give a lot of lessons if possible. I try to uplift people, encourage people. And sometimes people need that first thing in the morning, or even at nighttime. It doesn't matter. Sometimes people lack that guidance in their life, so I try to provide that here on this platform. Um, Let me ask you this: like, where were you born and where did you grow up?
So, I was born in Portland, Oregon, and
Mm,
I grew up in, various parts of Oregon. So, I'm actually a descendant of from William Clark from Lewis and Clark, and the
mm,
Clark family settled Oregon, and so I have several generations. I think that's 5 generations from William Clark that I am in. So that's on my mother's side. And so I've just grown up in Oregon. I am in Eugene now, which is U of O, the Oregon Ducks, if anybody knows that team.
yeah, yeah,
Following your
yeah,
collegiate
yeah.
football.
So I know about because I'm an Eagle fan, and then a couple years ago we had a head coach named Chip Kelly, and he was a coach
That's
over there
him.
in Oregon. So
Yeah.
what he tried to do is when he became an NFL coach, is he tried to draft nothing but players that played for Oregon. So that's when I
Yeah.
was like, huh, what is it about Oregon? But their uniforms is pretty cool.
Well, the thing about Oregon is, we have Nike over here. Nike was born from Phil Knight. Phil Knight,
Mm,
the Nike headquarters is located outside of Portland. But he has invested a lot of, or at least the Knight Foundation has invested a lot of buildings and stuff like that. So we have like the Matt Knight Arena here. We're the big track and um, oh my gosh, his name is fleeting me, but like a big track presence here as well.
right.
The Olympics, the Olympic trials are hosted here. So there's a lot of activity that goes on as far as like sports entertainment. I've actually never been in the Matt Knight Arena or in Autzen Stadium, so don't.
Right.
I'm not a big sports person, but I just happen to be
Oh,
around around it.
got
But
you.
yeah, that was an interesting time. I remember when Chip Kelly was here, my ex, he was a cook, and so he worked at the restaurants that Chip Kelly would go to.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So he was a chef.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. You have any siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 siblings. I have 2 brothers, and then I have a half sister, kind of estranged, but, I have met her. My brothers are younger than me. I'm the oldest,
Mm,
and they live in the areas, and yeah.
okay, so how is it in Oregon? What's the life like? What's the culture like?
Um, I mean, a lot of people look at it and they're like, "Oh, it's this super blue state," but Oregon is very rural. A lot of people
Mm,
don't realize that. Like the cities are pretty compact and big, but most of Oregon is rural. So you have this like almost 50-50 mix of like liberal and conservative style people. But for the most part, like everybody just that lives here typically enjoys nature. And so they go out to hike or camp or fish or hunt. Like there's a lot of that that goes on. But, you also have like Portland, Salem, Eugene, Bend, which are bigger cities. And so you have like a little bit of a nightlife if you're in Portland. But most of it is very rural and very unpopulated. It's like the
Okay,
cities that
okay.
are the populated parts.
Yeah, so it's crazy. So like, as a family, like well, for me personally, I've been to like 15, 16 states or something like that. But 2 years ago, what I told my family was, as a family, we're going to go to 2 trips a year until we touch down every state. So 2 years ago, we went to Connecticut and Rhode Island. Unfortunately, we didn't go anywhere last year, but this year I'm going to well, we're going to Tennessee and in Pennsylvania, right? So I've never been to Tennessee, so that's going to be interesting. So, when I have podcast guests from different states, I like to ask them, what's it do? What is there to do in their state and things of that nature. So, that's why I asked you about Oregon because, Oregon, it's way over there out west. So yeah, I know it's going to be different. It's like a slower pace environment.
Yeah, in 2020, in 2019, I kinda had a little bit of a breakdown of like, what the fuck am I doing with my life?
Right.
And so a big part of what I was all about, it was just a big upgrade. I left everything behind. I sold my house. I um, bought an RV. I left my job. I left my relationship. And so it was like kind of this big fresh start of, what is next for me.
Wow.
And so in my RV, well, I took a couple road trips across America, let's just say that. And it's interesting because, in the Pacific Northwest, it's almost like the South where it's like really peaceful and calm. Like people are not like, it's
Right.
not like being in the Northeast, like in New York or whatever. Like there's this personality that people have in their regions.
Right.
Same thing for the Midwest. Like there's this, and then Texas obviously is probably its own thing, but it's got that like Southern sweetness, but
Yeah.
like a little bit of toughness. And then in the South, it's like pretty chill. Um, but the Pacific Northwest is because of our growing season, I think it's just a little bit more relaxed. So, we're almost tropical, but not.
Okay.
Everything grows here. You can pretty much successfully grow anything if you take the right precautions. Obviously,
Right.
some
Right.
tropical stuff won't. But I find, I interviewed this guy from Puerto Rico, and he was telling me about, mangoes are just they're all over the place, and so people just let them fall on the ground, and
Right.
nobody cares. They're just like, oh, there's mangoes everywhere. But then that regional that culture is like we have food at all times. We don't have to worry about things. So it's just like if you're hungry,
Right.
you go pick up a mango or whatever.
I got you.
And so it's
Oh,
kind of like that up here in the Pacific Northwest where it's like you have food available to you everywhere.
I got you. So, what do you do for a living?
I am an energetics and emotions coach. So I teach emotional intelligence and I teach energetics, and I intertwine those two to help people get out of being stuck.
Okay. So that's interesting because, like I said, that's the whole premise of today's conversation. So we're going to dive deep into that a little bit in a minute. Now, you were saying when you left your relationship, were you married or no?
No,
Have you ever been married?
no,
No. Is marriage something for you or no?
maybe. If I
You on
find
the
the
fence
right
with it?
person, they have to be able to
Oh,
hold me. I'm a lot. I'm a lot to
uh
hold.
oh. So what is it? What do you got? Like high expectations?
I don't think it's high expectations. Though I'm very intellectual, I'm very emotional, and so I have this really high energy about me. And I think a lot of men I've been around or attracted have either been very intimidated by it, or they don't understand it, don't believe it, and have a hard time wrapping their mind about around what's going on. Because, women, we tend to be a little bit chaotic, and not in a bad way, but in like a man is not going to have like 50 emotions in a day, whereas a woman, that's a possibility, and it's probably
Right.
happening all the time. You
Right.
never
Right.
know, like you never know like what mood she's going to be in based on, and it's because we tend to be more receptive. So
Mm,
the energy around us, we're like feeling it because we want to feel safe and we want to feel secure. And if
mm-hmm.
we don't feel that way, if we don't feel safe or secure in our body, which is why I'm doing this work, is then we start to panic. We start to think, oh, something's wrong. And then that's when the chaos starts. And it's for the man in her life to say,
Right.
look, you're going to be fine. Calm down. Everything's going to be okay. And so that's
Mm,
where he comes in with his strong energy of like, I'm providing, I'm protecting, you're going to be okay. And so
mm,
there's this beautiful dance that goes with relationships. So I'm not saying that it's not possible out there for me, but I'm not going to settle for somebody who's going to pedestal me because they want to be around my energy just by proxy. I want to be
right.
around somebody that's going to match my energy and meet me where I'm at in my higher dimensional levels of wherever I'm at, and not compete with me, but to
Right.
be this like beautiful balance of my energy.
Right. And that's how every man and woman, like when we talk about relationship, it should always be a balance, right? Like
Mhm.
it should be equally yoked, right? But so for what it sounds like you are high functioning. Yeah, high functioning
I'm high
woman.
functioning, low maintenance though, because
Okay.
better believe I can get ready in less than 15 minutes out the door. So I'm
That's
not
amazing. Cause
I'm
that
not like one of
normally
those women that are taking a million years to get ready and making the man wait. And I'm like, no, I want to go on an adventure. I want to go on it now. Let's get out the door.
okay. So that's so I so not to get personal, but so as far as the men's selection, you think you're looking in the wrong places or
Um, I'm not even looking, to be honest.
okay.
I
I
just
got you.
I the only person I'm looking at is me.
Okay. No,
Not
I
to
mean
sound
that's good.
conceited or anything. It's not coming from a conceited place, but the more that a woman or man, the more that someone pours into themselves and
Right.
truly loves themselves, the more they can give. And that's
That,
energy, baby.
yeah, I
Now,
believe that.
if you're people pleasing and you're trying to control somebody, it's not going to work out because it's always going to fall. Like you can't
Right.
build relationships on your control sand. Like it
Right,
has
right.
to be built on stone. And that stone comes from centering and grounding within yourself. And then you have this extra energy of, I can pour into you now. And a
Right.
man really doesn't want to like be controlled by a woman. It's really gross. Let's be honest.
See,
They
all
always
right,
feel
so
emasculated and
that's
it's
that's true.
unpleasant. Nobody wants
That's
that.
true. But so I look at a lot of things differently in my life right now. So I know that like a lot of men, they do feel demasculated or dehumanized at some points. Um, and they get intimidated, as you said. But this is like I feel like a high functioning man should know the difference, right? Because sometimes when I talk to people or talk to other men, and I try to tell them to look at life or relationships through a different lens. And a lot of times they tell me I got good points, right? It's like it's about understanding the woman, right? Like you know how they say like a happy wife is a happy home, happy life. Now some people say that's corny, but it's the truth, right? You keep the woman happy, you could be happy for the most part. Like you were saying, like you want to match that energy. So it's like it's about matching that energy. It should always be like that because anything in life is about energies, right? It's if you want positivity, you're gonna be surround yourself with positivity, and if you're a negative person, that's all you're gonna get. So everything is about frequency and vibrations, right? So it's like
Mhm.
it's about matching your partner, right? So I tell people that, like, you can't be yelling and dictating and pointing the finger if you can't handle it or you can't accept it coming back at you. You know what I'm saying? So it's about understanding that woman, just like a woman should understand a man. So I understand what you're saying.
I did this
So you,
really beautiful newsletter called on Substack called um, the 9 emotional the 9 what was it called? Hold on, I can look it up really quick. But it was like the 9 points of an emotionally attractive man.
mm,
So, when you're saying high functioning, I think that's maybe not necessarily the right word, but we're gonna run with that. The Let's see if I can find it. Um, the key here is that a man simply needs, and women need it too, but men need to just be confident in who they are, just to know that they're enough. And when they have that confidence, the women will be that have that match that energy are going to be drawn into that. We're
right,
all, like you said, we're all frequency.
right,
Like we're literally biofield frequencies running around in these meat suits. And it's almost like these meat suits that we're in are a distraction from
right,
this bigger picture body that we actually are. So that's the kind of stuff that I jump into and kind of, okay, let's see here. 9 emotional competencies of the attractive man. I wrote that in February, and I had some very positive reviews on it. People, I shared it with a singles group, and they were very impressed by the points that I made. But really, what women are going to be drawn to is this emotional resilience in a man, somebody that's going to be able to make her laugh and connect with her body
hmm
in that way. Because when
right,
you make a woman laugh, like you're drilling down, like, first you've got to, like, capture her mind, and then you gotta capture her heart, and then,
right.
the rest.
Yeah,
And then you get all of her, and that's
yeah,
really what men want because on a biological level, women experience and feel things very deeply, and the
hmm
men want to be in proximity to a woman who's lit up, is feeling, is is regulated, is in control. He wants to be around that because men don't experience life like that. They're very different.
right, right,
And when you get that union and you're combining that beautiful divine masculine energy and your divine feminine energy within yourself, so because men and women have it,
right,
when you can do that within yourself and then your partner is also doing that and then you're unionized in that, it's a beautiful relationship. Like if you
right,
see people who are actualized in that, you would probably drop your jaw, stare, and start drooling because it's a beautiful energy that you're around. Like that
right,
resonance that is coming off of that partnership is magnetic.
right,
It's It's beautiful. Like, you see the light of these 2 people in this mystical union just shining, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, whatever that is, I want that,"
right,
because we want to have that connection and that divine union, and you're watching these 2 people, if they're, like, actually together, they're not just them together, but they're, like, connected to
right,
source. They're connected to God at that point, and so it's a beautiful thing,
right,
and
right,
I mean, that's like a passion. Part of why I do this is because I see it, and I've seen it ever since I was 16. I had this like vision, but we could talk about that later. Go on.
so one of my previous guests on the show, right? She just published her second book. It was a real good book. It was called Letters from You to You. And so what it talked about, the whole gist of it, it's 21 letters in the book. So each one of them are written from the perspective of your inner self, right? So the gist of it was it's about saying you're nothing without Me. If you're not connected with your inner self, then you can't progress in life, right? You have to be one with yourself before you can be one with somebody else, right? It's sort of like if you don't love yourself, how can you love somebody else, right?
Mhm.
So it's just like anything that frustrates you, those are just beings. That's just negative energy. So, right, as long as you connected with your inner self, you won't allow that negativity to alter your life. So it was good. And then the way she wrote it was so like poetic, and it was good. And I recommended that book to a couple of people, and a couple of people said they want books. So I actually, she gave me a copy, but it wasn't autographed. So I'm about to get a autograph copy sent my way. But it was a good book. She recommended a couple other books because I like thought provoking things. Like I like anything that's going to enhance my intellect, right? Like so I like to think. Right, I like complex things. Even when I watch movies, if it's not complex, and I'm not saying I won't like it, but I just like the complexity of things, right? Because your brain is the biggest muscle in the body.
Mhm.
A lot of people want to work out. They don't ever work out. They don't ever work out their mind or exercise their mind, and that's vital and it's very important. Because one thing I learned is the more you read, the more you can hold a sustainable, a civilized conversation. Right,
Mhm.
you can basically jump into any conversation and just fit in, right? Because it helps you with everything, the way you pronounce words and things like that. Um, so I asked you if you've been married before. Do you have kids?
I have 2 kids.
Okay.
I have,
You got two
2
sons,
boys, 12 and 20, or 12 and 19.
12 and 18. Jeez. It was rough for you or it was easy?
Having kids?
Yeah, your two kids. Your two boys, should I say.
My 2 boys, the they're different. They're on different ends of the spectrum. One's really wild and crazy like me, and then the other one's very chill like his dad.
Oh, you classify yourself as wildly crazy. That's amazing.
I'm
So
adventurous. I told you I was part of William Clark. I'm the Clark family. That's adventurous, man. It's in my DNA.
I got you. Yeah, so I got four kids. I have three sons and a daughter. And my daughter, granted, uh she's about to be one in a couple days. But my three boys, oh my God, they run me up a wall. Like they're so different. They don't get along. And I don't know if it's a boy thing or what. I love them to death, but it's like the noise, the chaos, especially with them being hyperactive. It's oh my God, it's crazy. But when I'm not with my kids, then I miss my kids. So I wouldn't trade them for the world. And I know every parent say that, but when it's like 5 minutes with them, you be like, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah,
So that's why I asked you.
if I could change anything, I would totally have more kids, but it just wasn't in the cards for me.
It's too late.
Sometimes I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I should have had 8 kids."
It's crazy because I always said I wanted multiple kids like that. But then, I had my first one. I was like, oh, this is easy. I don't know why people say it's so hard. And then I had the second one. I'm like, all right, it's a little, it's tolerable. Then I had the third one. I'm like, all right, it's crazy. And then the fourth one just snuck up on me. I'm like, this, but she's calm though. She really don't cry. She's the only one that never had a binky. To this
Mhm.
day, she never had a binky because she don't cry. She don't fuss. She don't. She
Yeah,
she only fussed when she need to be changed.
that's how
So.
my younger son was, like, he never had to be pacified. He was very quiet. He didn't even like loud noises. Even when I was pregnant with him, like, loud noises would startle him in the womb. He was just very
Mm.
sensitive to sound. So,
Interesting.
I tried to go swimming with the dolphins with him, but I was too scared. Too
So,
scared to
and that's
jump in the
like
bay.
it's crazy when we talk about like energies and stuff. And that's where any kid, like whether it's a male or female, that's they get their first connections with mom, right? And
Mhm,
that's why when they come out, they just have that. It's like natural from them, right? It's just they just know who mom is, the
mhm.
scent and everything, because they walk around in the stomach, and it's amazing how the energies just connect
Well,
like that.
and you're also, like, sharing fluid with them, like, your
Hmm.
blood is being shared with them, I mean, there is some separation, but, the connection and integration that you have with this baby is, like, it I remember the moment that I fell in love with him, and he was still in my womb, and I was like, "Oh, this is" like, it was my heart was being ripped apart. I was like I could feel it just being, like, opened, and I loved him so much, and, I felt the same way with my mother. I had such a strong connection to her, And, when she died and I was when she was diagnosed with cancer, I put a blurb out on that, and then when she died, I put a blurb out on my social media to one of my communities. And the response that I got was a very mixed response. Like, people have some they have a lot of difficulties with their mothers. And it really made me sad because, like, here I didn't have my mother, like, on this realm anymore, and then to see people, like, bring up, like, "Oh my gosh, you had such a beautiful relationship with your mother. I wish I had that." It kind of, like, from a collective feeling point of view, because I'm very like, I'm not very emotional, but I'm, like, very receptive to the collective energy. It just hit me that, oh my gosh, people have really terrible relationships with their mothers, and, like, mine was so beautiful. And um just had this, like, moment of sadness for the collective
Right,
in that
right.
moment.
I got you. Um, so are you religious?
I would probably deem myself spiritual. I kind of classify myself as a Christian mystic. And the only reason is, like, as I was young, I wasn't really raised in churches or anything like that. So I didn't have any, like, family tradition or any, like, we go to church every Sunday or anything like that. In fact, I think I was probably a little bit more drawn to it. I went to, like, the after school, what do they call it? Good news programs or whatever after school.
Right, right,
I would go to those, and then I tried to go to churches when I was in my late teens, early 20s to find what I was looking for. And in fact, I had this really insane confession confession last night of, like, to my group of, when I was in my late teens, um, I was really struggling with emotional regulation. I was really struggling with identity and being, feeling calm and peace. And I just, for whatever reason, was like, I'm condemned to hell. And so I had this, like, hell programming in my mind of, like, if I don't fix this, like, and then it's like, oh, and the word is like, oh, you can't do anything in order to be saved. And, but also you're going to go to hell if you're going to be saved. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, the paradox
right,
of that really messed with my young prefrontal cortex developing mind. And um, I remember going to this pastor and his wife one day and, like, sitting with them. And I was like, I feel like I'm gonna go to hell and I'm terrified of it. And what the fuck do I do to get out of this?
right,
Like,
right,
give me some peace here. And they couldn't answer it. And I was like, and going to churches, it just wasn't enough for me. I knew deep down in my soul that there was something more, that there was something that was missing. And it wasn't until I was in my late 30s that I discovered Christian mystic. So Christian mysticism, which takes, a lot of people will call it new age, but I don't think it's new age. I think that the new age is really good at, like, naming the things, but the mysticism that is in the Bible already, just with Jesus, disappearing into crowds and transfiguring on the mount, those kind of things were fascinating to me. And then Elijah getting caught up and not dying here on this realm, but going up to heaven, and, showing up later on with Moses and having a little fun time with Jesus, Peter, and John on the mount. Like, I'm just like, okay, there's something more here, and it's not being taught, and I want to know what it is. And so, that really started this desired, this kind of drive that I have of, we have this technology within ourselves to multi-locate in the spirit, to translocate, to have telepathic conversations with people, to meet them where they're at, that we're connected with them on this like unexplainable level. And so those kind of topics just really fascinated me. And I've spent a lot of time listening to podcasts that, talk about these things. But the way that I see it is like it's always been in us. You can't call it new age when it's already installed in our bodies and we just don't know how to operate the software.
Right.
And um, so I would describe myself more Christian mystic than I would anything else at
I
this
got
point.
you. So what do you like to do in your spare time?
Aside from dancing, I like to go to the casino. That's fun. I like to go to the
Uh-oh.
beach.
Like gambling. Ching 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 ching.
Yeah, just for fun. Like, I am dating somebody, so I we hang out. We go to the casino. We go to the beach. We go, to the mountains, hiking, whatever. Like, we just hang out. He's down for adventure. I'm down for adventure. I'm like, okay, let's go. So
Yeah.
no
That's always a
nonsense
plus.
there. And I don't have to fight him. It's very
Interesting.
we match energy, so it's really nice.
That's always a plus. So, all right. So, what is emotional intelligence? Like, how would you break that down?
Okay, so this is a big thing. A lot of people, they hear emotional intelligence and they think, oh, I mean, you probably think this, oh, empathy. And then like not really much anything after that. Feelings.
Right.
But emotions are an energy. Like we have our physical body, we have our mental body, and then we have this emotional body which kind of interacts with the rest of it. And then we have our spiritual body, right? And that's
Right.
that's kind of how I break it down. So emotional intelligence is energy in motion, is emotions. So it's that flow that is going through you as you feel something. So if somebody hurt your feelings, you're gonna maybe feel mad at them or just angry in that moment. Maybe not mad at them, but angry. And so there are these feelings that we have that are a trigger to show us what we need to focus on. So, maybe you're feeling envious of something and it's like, okay, why am I feeling that envy? Um, so, that's kind of a basic part of it. Emotional intelligence is actually a frequency. It's your emotional frequency of how you interact with yourself and then how
Mhm.
you interact with others. So the the interacting with yourself is like your personal power, how you see yourself, your self-worth, your self-confidence, your um just kind of the way that you see yourself with self-respect, like how you conduct yourself in that. And
Mhm.
then there's an awareness piece to it. So, actual emotional awareness. Am I aware of my emotions? Can I assess properly how I'm feeling in this moment? And then it goes beyond. So when you start looking at others, it's like empathy is one of them, but there's 26 core pieces to emotional intelligence. Empathy is one of them. Social awareness is one of them. Like, do I
You
can
said
I
you said 20 pieces
26?
or 26?
Yeah, there's 26 core pillars of emotional intelligence, and part of it's how you see yourself, and then the other part of it is how you see others. So think conflict resolution. How am I
Okay.
going to react to somebody that I am having a disagreement, or maybe they're having a disagreement with me? How well can I manage that? Intentionality. So setting an intention. I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to be consistent at it and I'm going to do it every day of this week at this time, like setting that intention and actually following through with it. So if you're doing that and you're not following through with it and you're inconsistent in that, your intentionality might be very low.
Right.
Um, but there's many other pieces to it. That's just some of them. But emotional intelligence is kind of like this course. So when you you can take a test and test your emotional frequency, which is something that I do in my practice. You look at it, it's basically a bar chart, and it's, average to above average or below average, like in a danger spot of where you land on this. And you just kind of look at that and you can say, oh, okay. So you have your IQ, which is the intelligence quotient, that is basically your processing speed. How quickly can I solve a problem? How quickly can I analyze the trends and the data that is presented to me? And that is like
Right.
whatever you're at is likely what you're going to be at, unless you have some sort of head injury or something that like takes away from that. But that remains fairly static. The beautiful thing about emotional intelligence is because it's a frequency, and because you can work on it, you can actually raise your frequency of emotional intelligence. And so your frequency will be higher. And what does that mean? That is where we were talking about that resilience, where you're capable of going into a situation and remaining firm in your boundaries, remaining firm in your conflict resolution, being able to like pull yourself out of it and see the full picture, the full spectrum of a situation, and then act in a way that is beneficial for everyone, or for the most part everyone, because you can't always please everybody. But you're able to like look at others and notice like, oh, okay, I can see this area that needs to be worked on. So
Right.
when you deepen into your emotional awareness and into emotional intelligence and develop that resilience, at after that, like things, your energy changes, your frequency is different, your vibe is different. Like I said, when I was younger, I was very emotionally unregulated. I was all over the place. I was kind of a wild card.
Right.
And, now that I've really deepened into like feeling my emotions, letting them go, doing the trauma work, or shadow work, as I like to call it, and really facing those things, now I can face situations with a lot more confidence, a lot more awareness, and listen, really deeply listen to people and help them, resolve whatever the situation is.
Right. So it puts me in a mind of like therapy, right? Like, because to be a good therapist, you got to be a good listener, right? It's like you got to work on self. I feel like so it reminds me of therapy, but it also, the book I was telling you about before is like being connected with yourself, because the way that I had interpreted emotional intelligence is being aware of your own emotions, right? To be able to identify emotions in other people, and to really just break down the whys, right? Like a lot of times we don't ask ourselves the why. So like somebody act out of character, or they might act this way. It's like once you understand your own emotions, I feel like you can understand other people's emotions and why they're acting or the way they are emotionally. So that was how I was breaking it down.
It's not
It's
even
like,
necessarily that exclusive. You can feel other people's emotions and be frozen in your own.
mm,
It's so bizarre. It sounds weird, but it's so true because I've done it before.
I got you. Now you mentioned it, like the self awareness, right? How would you describe your self awareness?
Oh, I've taken the test and my awareness is very, very high. My social awareness, so awareness of others is very high. And then my own emotional awareness, because I've done so much work to like improve it, is really,
Right.
really high. I I had a situation last year where I felt envy, and I was like, "Ew,
Mm,
what is this?" I don't want anybody else's whatever. And I just felt it. And so I was like, okay, there's something here that I'm missing that I need to work on.
right.
And so I thought about it, and I, did some digging, and it came from age 5 and 6,
Mm,
when my mom had a boyfriend who had 2 daughters. So they weren't married, but they were essentially my stepsisters, and he doted on them all the time but never on me. And
Mm.
so I had this like wound, mother wound, and then sister wound that like were
Right.
affecting me at age 40, when all the way back in age 5, like I was watching, this happen. And the father wound is like, this man who's like serving as my father is not being emotionally available to me. My mother chose to be in this relationship with this man who's doing this to me. And then the sister wound is like watching these women, or my sisters, get doted on, and then I'm not. And so that all pulled through, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's where it's at." So I got to rewrite that story, and, now I'm just like, I knew I didn't want what they had. Like, there
Right.
wasn't anything in me. I was like, "I'm meant for something else." Like, I don't wanna be them. But
Right.
I just had this feeling just because of the energy of it, just because it was a reminder, a remembrance of this, like, inner child wound that I had that I needed to resolve. So, it was a beautiful thing, and that's emotional intelligence. That's the awareness that you have, like, I have this feeling, doesn't feel good. Where is it
Right.
coming from, and why is it doing this feedback loop for me? And you can pinpoint it and then fix it.
That's why I think it's so important to have decompression time and self-reflection time, because without that, you, just like you said, you had to pinpoint, you had to go back and pinpoint where it was coming from. So without decompression time or self-reflection, it's like you would never know that. You'd be stagnant. You'd be stuck trying to figure out, well, what is it, right? So that's why sometimes in life, when life becomes like overwhelming, like you have to find that balance where you can take a step back and just breathe a little bit to assess your life or your life situations. That's why I tell a lot of people, like sometimes you just got to take a step back, especially when you feel yourself spiraling or your body temperature start raising, right? Because like you said, everything in life is about energy,
Mhm.
you know. Um, so, how is your ability to handle stress? Like, what's that like?
Um, I mean, stress management is part of emotional intelligence.
Mm,
And, when you have a obviously stress is there for a good reason. It's there
mm,
to protect you.
mm,
And I had a really nice conversation with somebody a couple days ago on one of my streams. And we were talking about the survival mode and why we go into that. And that's a stress response. And that is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And fawn is like when you just do whatever they say to just like not to avoid like a conflict. And so, the person said we should always be in survival mode, and that is something that definitely we don't want to always be in. It's very nice and it serves a great purpose, but from a physical perspective, when your central nervous system is unregulated, meaning that you're in survival mode and you're not in the parasympathetic response or the parasympathetic nervous system, that is rest and digest and repair. When you're not in that and you're constantly in survival mode, so think chronic stress, chronic um, chronic worry, just chronic survival mode, your body is on low battery mode. So what physiologically happens is your prefrontal cortex is now on low battery mode, which is your reasoning and your thinking. So you might start to have brain fog. Your digestive system will start to go into low battery mode, as I like to call it, and it's not going to be pulling the vitamins, minerals, water, everything that your body needs in order to be healthy. So your digestive system, you might have like digestive issues, your stomach's always hurting, blah blah blah, whatever it is. And then because of that, your gut flora is related to your skin, which is your body's biggest organ, and so you might see dullness or dryness or whatever. You'll have these physical responses from that. And the way that I manage my response or my stress response now is, I honor the feelings that are coming in and I pinpoint on where is this coming from and why. So I'm constantly looking for things to like dial in, pinpoint, repair, and then like go to the next thing because there's always something. So I do biofield tuning. So I have my tuning forks that I use, which is a sound therapy. I can grab one. So these are these are tuning forks, and you just hit it here, and then it resonates a frequency. So this one is for the throat chakra, but this one is a 741 hertz. And so, I'll ring this and I'll listen to it and kind of meditate, and like run it around my throat area. And if I feel something in there, I just kind of like let it sit. And I just listen to my body tell me through the sound frequency, like where the issues are. Like today I was doing a grounding and I could feel like a really deep reverberation in my heart space, with my grounding fork, just because I was feeling a little excited and I was like, okay, you need to just calm down. I've been doing a lot of big mental expansions lately. And so I get really excited. My heart rate starts going up because I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so exciting. Like it's a discovery. So the tuning forks I do, and then I do like activations for people with the tuning forks as well to help calm them down so that there are what you want to do is you want to stimulate your vagus nerve. And
Mm.
your vagus nerve is when it's stimulated, you could do that in several different ways. You don't have to have just tuning forks. You can so you can just have a and that's going to stimulate your vagus nerve,
Right.
and it's going to help calm you down. It's going to help you take you out of that stress. The other ways that are simple is you can go gargle. So just gargling water can help you to like take you out of that stress response and back into your body.
Mm.
And then there's other things like deep breathing is obviously one that everybody's heard of, and yeah, we can do that. But when you're in a survival mode, you'll find yourself just not even breathing. You're not
Mm.
even taking full breaths. So you want to be able to take those full breaths and to feel into your body. And when you do take that breath, I think you can feel like how it's activating to all your muscles. So
Right.
somatics in that way, singing may be helpful for you. Sometimes I like to put some diva music on and I just sing at the top of my lungs. And I'm
But
like
there you
singing to
go.
God. I'm like, okay, God, I'm singing to you. And it just feels joyful, it's so there's just little things that you can do. There's a lot of little things that you can do to stimulate that vagus nerve, but having the awareness that you're actually in that stress response,
Right.
and then like, okay, I gotta pull back and take myself out of there, is really helpful. So I try to fashion my life to be as less stressed as possible.
Right.
Um, but that's not always possible with everybody. And in moments in my life, there was definitely like where I was just living in stress.
Right. Yeah. This might go hand in hand with what you was already saying, but like, how do you manage conflicts?
um, so being an empath, like my conflict resolution, the fact that I probably don't really want to be in conflict is not my favorite thing. Um, just because I prefer peace, not
Mm.
war, but I've I've been known to pull some hoops every once in a while when I get pushed far enough. I got a lot of Taurus energy. So the
Taurus.
Taurus is like the one that just wants to sit and chill in the field, and that, something comes up and it's like kind of provokes them, like pokes at him, and then you're
Right.
like, okay, now it's activated. So conflict resolution is definitely a emotional intelligence thing, and really um I in my former work I worked doing negotiations, and
Mm.
so it's slightly a form of conflict resolution where you like maybe the other person disagrees with the nature of what is being said, and so
Right.
you have to be really confident about what the outcome that you want is, and then you have to listen to what they're saying and really like sit and feel into, okay, that person wants this. Here's where the disagreement lies. What can we do to resolve that issue?
Right.
And there's different responses that people like. Some people are just very aggressive. Some people are just, really laid back. And so it really depends on that person's personality on how they're going to manage that conflict. But it's like everything is resolvable, and it's all possible to get to that point.
Okay. So what inspires you in life?
Psychic abilities, spiritual technology. I have a very, I don't know where it comes from, but I'm very intellectual. I like to learn a lot of things.
Mhm.
As a kid, I loved reading. It was like my favorite thing to do. And we didn't have television like they do nowadays back in my day. So I would go to the library and I would literally have like stacks and stacks of books and I would read them all. Well, maybe like one or two wouldn't get read, but I would read them all. Like I was like devouring information from the time I was like 3 or 4. As
Right.
soon as I could read, it was like the newspaper, I read the whole thing. Anything that I can get my hands on, it was like I was reading it and I was reading at a very high level. Um, so now I just like to advance my, I just kind of like, okay, that sounds interesting. And so I'll kind of go down this really deep rabbit hole of um, whatever that is. But I think most of all, I'm most passionate and inspired to follow God's purpose for me. And I didn't know what that meant until recently. So I did a couple years ago, I found out about human design. I had known about astrology and yeah, whatever. It's like, okay. But human design was actually a lot more inspirational. And then with that, coupling in gene keys. And so um, human design combines astrology, the I Ching, Kabbalah, um, gene keys, quantum physics, and it like amalgamates it all into this personality type. And there's 5 different types of personalities.
Right.
And when I found out what my personality type was and I read it, I actually cried a couple times, which is a normal response, but it's one of the more rare personality types. And you get this chart and it shows you like what your energy centers are and what um let me see if I can pull it up here really quick. Um see if I can find mine. Whoop. So like this is a chart. Not that. This is a chart and you can
Mhm.
see that there's all these like centers here. So all of those energy centers are open on a reflector. And that's one of the rarer types. So I cried a couple times because deep down I knew that there was something different about me. And I spent so many years trying to fit in with everybody else, but I couldn't. I
Mm,
just felt like
mm,
I was not fitting in the way that I wanted to, the way that other people
mm.
could.
Right.
And then when I discovered that I was a human design reflector, it made sense. It clicked. And that's
Right.
why I cried. I was like, "You're not like the others."
Right.
And
Now,
so it
oh,
was
go ahead.
like,
Go ahead.
oh yeah. And so it was awesome for me to be able to recognize that and then learn how to use that gift to help others, because essentially what you are is like an oracle for the people. You feel the collective and you bring that information in, then you let it go and you tell them, I've digested it down, here's what you guys need. And that's what makes it beautiful working with clients is I get to take on and feel into their energy and their story and their situation, digest it, and then like give them back the meat of what's going on so that they can resolve on a faster timeline instead of sitting there
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to heal or whatever.
Got you. Now, I'm glad you mentioned the whole human design reflecting thing. So, can you break that down, elaborate on that a little bit for
Yeah.
us that don't know what that is?
Yeah, not a lot of people. It's a little bit more modern of a way of looking at it. Like I said, it's combining all of these different aspects of spiritual information and quantum physics into your personal soul blueprint. So when um I mean, I guess as a premise, we are born into this world and there is a certain celestic design that's going on in the sky.
Mm,
And I don't know how much your audience knows about it, but if you look through a telescope at the celestics in the sky, they actually have these sound vibrations to each of them. So if you look
right,
at Mars, it has this unique um, vibration. Like if you're going to put sand on a speaker, it has this like unique um, design that from
right,
whatever that frequency is. And so going off that, like people have been so fascinated by astrology because it's like an imprint of them and you know a lot of people just look at their sun sign and they're like, oh, that's it, but there's all these other influences that it has on you, and it tells a lot about you. The unique thing about human design is it takes the time that you were born and the time you were conceived and it matches it together. So one side is your unconsciousness and the other side is your consciousness, like what you're aware of
mm,
and then what you're not necessarily aware of in your mind now. So it combines this and it has different personality types. There's 5 of them. Reflectors, one of them. Generators is the most common. It's about 70% of people. And those people are waiting for an invitation. They're basically waiting for orders of what do I do? So the
mm,
generators, 70% of the population. And then you have manifesting generators, which both of my children are manifesting generators. You have manifestors, projectors, and reflectors. So you have
mm.
these 5 different types. And it goes pretty deep. So if you guys want readings, I offer those readings out. So just if you're interested in that, I'm happy to do that for you. It's very helpful. The other piece, so that helps you to like figure out how do I respond to life? Am I
Mm,
waiting for an invitation for somebody to come in and say, "Hey, do you want to do this podcast?" Am I waiting for that? Am I a projector? I might be. Like if I'm a projector, I'm waiting for people to say, "Hey, I'd love to be on your can I be on your podcast or do you want to be on my podcast?" So they're waiting for that initiation before they can start guiding. Like, "Oh yeah, I'll do that," or "No, I'm not going to." Generators are much in the same. They're expected to respond, so they're also waiting for this invitation to respond to as well.
right,
For reflectors, ours is like waiting 28 days. So we're waiting lunar cycles, like we're lunar beings basically. So it's it's a very much deep patience
right.
and it's very feminine energy because you're waiting to receive information from others. So it's pretty big.
Right.
And then on top of that, there's gene keys that are involved in it. So like if you look here, there's all these like little lines that are connecting. You can see the black and red lines here.
Right.
They're all connecting. So once one of these is connected all the way, it'll light up that one and then that one.
Gotcha.
None of mine are connecting, but if they did, then I would be different. Um,
Right.
but all of those have little gates and channels, and so they each have their own unique wisdom encoded in it. And so everybody's blueprint is different. And it's with that that I discovered what my purpose was here. So I looked at that. I looked at my astrology chart. I looked at my human design chart, and I kind of, from a broad perspective, looked at that of like, what am I meant to do here? Like, my
All
life
right.
is unsatisfactory. What am I, we're all looking for our purpose and something that's going to bring us personal satisfaction in our lives. And it was like, you're here to help heal people.
Mm,
And you, you kind of have to figure out, like, okay, where is my passion lie in that? But I have a lot of healing and health energy in my chart. And so I was like, I mean, I can run away from this, but it's going to eat at me and all my
right.
jobs are going to be unsatisfactory. I'm always going to feel sad at the end of it. Or I can just jump into this soul led business and listen to God's purpose for me.
Right. Right. So one of the things I meant to lead off with, at the top of the podcast was, tell the viewers about your podcast and what made you start it.
I actually started my podcast a couple years ago, before my mom got sick. And, it was just a podcast to talk about emotional intelligence and like teach people uh, just a little bit deeper into that. Because, when I pick my topics, it's topics I'm interested in. It's what I'm currently like diving deep into and connecting with. And
Mm,
I find that when I teach on a topic, I have to do a lot of research into that topic as well and really get into what the meat of what that topic is.
right.
So my podcast is called Celestic Intelligence Podcast. And it used to be, I used to go by Radical Souls. That was
Okay.
really motivating to me. But then when my mom died, and I went through my grief process. I cut my hair. I kind of was reborn a little, and I was like, I have to reborn also my business here, and what I'm get really intentional about what I'm here to do. Get really intentional about getting into it and not make excuses. And so I was kind of toying around trying to figure out what am I going to name it, and I really wanted it to be Celestic, like celestial bodies, like really looking at the sky, because I want it to have this really deep spiritual element to it, but then also like kind of ground it down a little bit into like our human experience as well. And so looking at that, I was like, maybe solastic might be a fun play on words. And so I looked around and I didn't see anybody that had celestic intelligence. Celestic is like, I think it's a band or something like that. There's some musician like uses that. But for celestic intelligence, it's like this beautiful soul music, your frequency, your vibration, and your location, and then intelligence, like really diving deep into this technology that we have in our systems that is available to us, that's been screaming to be known. And I believe that my purpose here is to uncover it, make it digestible for people that are ready to tap into their technology as well.
Interesting. So and where can they find that at? I know it's on YouTube, but is it anywhere else like Spotify or anything?
Nope, I just have it on YouTube for right now. And YouTube is, I mean, it's kind of the place to have your stuff hang out for a while unless YouTube decides to like get rid of it. But
Right, right, right.
um I don't want them to. Like, universe, I don't want them to. Um, but yeah, I started a couple years ago and then I restarted it this year, and so there's a lot more information in there, and I slowly add to it. It's like it's like planting a garden. I'm very much into gardening, and even started a seed sharing, donation based seed sharing company in 2020, to for me learn how to start saving my seeds from my garden. And then obviously when you have a lot of seeds, you're like, what the heck am I going to do with all of these? I can't eat 2 million
Right.
carrots.
Right. So yeah, so I mean, I've watched maybe like two and a half of your podcast episodes. So at first it threw me off because when I started following, I seen somewhere it was like virtual like this, but then I seen where it wasn't virtual, and then I started seeing the same title. So I'm like, oh, okay, so she must do some just the audio and some of the because the very first one I watched, I forgot which one it was. It's on there just the audio, and it's also virtual like this. So obviously I like to look at the virtual. It's more personable. You get to see interactions. And you like to take walks a lot, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Because I know on Facebook when you be live, you be walking around, or is it Facebook, or I don't think I have
Yeah.
you on Instagram, so
Facebook
I think
usually.
it's Facebook. And you
Yeah.
just be walking around, just loving life. I'm like, look at her.
Like, "Oh."
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I mean, moving around is so important. It's part of that stress release is, energy gets stored in your body. And so you've got to move it around and release some of that. Otherwise, it's going to start to stagnate in your system. And so I try to make it a point to do my 10K steps a day. And sometimes I don't make it. And sometimes I do, way more. Just depends on how active I am that day, how much time I have available to go do that. But
right.
it's super important to get your body moving so that you're moving that energy and releasing a lot of that stagnation that can build up.
Right. And it's crazy. Like, earlier when we was talking about religion, we was talking about spirituality. Like spirit, when we talk about like the quantum healing, right, that ties into like spirituality, right? Like, I had two guests on that talked about quantum healing, and we talked about how, like, sometimes you go in a room and you might not know that person, but they might not say nothing to you, but you get around even certain places too. Your hair stand up on your arm or the back of your neck, and you wonder like, why is this happening? It's that negative energy. So like that's like spirituality. In the Bible they talk about love, like God is love, right? And about peace, happiness, and everything else. And this is everything else is like satanic or it's evil or it's wicked. So I think it's one of those type of things. It's like, it's about connecting to the right energy. So when you get to a place and if your hair stand up, something's not right. It's like watching one of these horror flicks, like The Omen or something like that. It's like when the lights start flickering, you start seeing this weird stuff. It's like it's time to go. So yeah, it's crazy because, like I said, we was talking about it. Like been around people, like I said, never said nothing to me, and it's eerie, right? You get that feeling, you be
Mhm.
like, see, something ain't right. So a lot of times, what I do is if I get that feeling, I gotta separate myself, go somewhere else, and it's crazy. Your hairs go right back down. So it's weird how the energies channel like that. So listening to people that talk about quantum healing and things like that, it do intrigue me, right? It's like you said, it gets deep,
It
right?
does.
Like when you say you like to read, my favorite subject in school was English and creative writing. I used to like to read all the time. In class they'd be like, "Who would like to read?" I was always the first one. Like, I'll read. I don't care. Because I like it. Like I have a passion for just reading and just learning. And I remember in high school I wanted to major in sociology and psychology until I started getting the books. Sociology is a little easier on the eyes, but psychology is very, very difficult. It gets so deep. Like I had to buy a dictionary, and I felt like every other word I had to look something up. So then I was like, you know what? I'm still interested in it, but I can't major in this. This is too much for me. And my
It's
teacher
really
used to be
funny.
like,
I'm
I
going
told
back
you.
to I'm, like, planning on going back to school to get my master's in psychology.
Cool. It's a lot of big words. Like they might not be big words to you, but I remember reading the book, and I used to get dizzy just trying to focus. I'm like, what am I looking at? It's like it was difficult for me. But like I said, I still have a passion for it. And I do buy, like I was just in Barnes and Noble. I bought a book on psychology, but it's different levels. Like I made sure I didn't get one of those collegiate type, because those collegiate books, it's like, forget about it. For me, it's too much. So I got like one of those in between that's easier to read, but it deals with the psyche, right? The human psyche. And the reason why I had like a passion for that, it's like, I had a lot of traumas growing up, and it's like I always wanted to know why certain things made me tick or why things made other people tick. So that's where that came. And then like as far as engaging with people and conversing with somebody, like I wanted to know why is it so easy for some people, but it's hard for other people. So I think that's where that passion came from. Like to this day, I like reading about sociology and psychology, but like I said, I just got to stay away from the collegiate ones. It's too much.
It can be really heady. But I want to tell a story because you were talking about how, when you walk into a room, you can feel another person's energy. And
Right.
so, a couple years ago, I rented a car, and
Mm.
I rented just like a mid-size or some whatever car. And I get there, and they give me a Dodge Challenger. I'm like, dude, I asked for a horse, and they gave me horses. And so I'm like vibing high. I'm just like on cloud nine. The universe is like peppering me with all this beautiful whatever. And so I have the weekend, whatever. And so I have this car for a week, and I went to go play dominoes with some with this family that I met at a beer garden. And when I went to their house, I ran over something, and so I had a flat tire. I was like, "Oh heck, I'm gonna have to." So I was on the phone with the company, and I'm like, "Okay, I have to go trade my car in." So, mind you, I'm on cloud nine. I think nothing is gonna take me down, right? And so I have to go to the airport to the rental car spot,
Right.
and I get there, and I'm super happy, and the guy was like a demon, seriously. He
Right.
psychically sucked all of my joy out, and I was, like, terrified. I went from, like, cloud 9 to terrified. I left that place crying. I sat in the
Mm.
car, in that rental car, the new one that I had wasn't a Challenger, but I was crying because, like, I didn't have energetic boundaries enough to not let him affect me.
Right.
And so, yes, like, I mean, there was something there, because that just doesn't happen. It was so bizarre. It was one of the most craziest things that I've ever experienced in my life.
Right.
And the high to low was like soul sucking, sickening. So there is something to that. Just because it's a shadow doesn't necessarily mean it's bad or that it's evil. Um, it could just be low energy. So if you're experiencing that shadow aspect, I did talk about it today in my podcast, episode 19, Soul Glitter. But if you're
Yeah, I was watching that with.
yeah, if you're experiencing this shadow aspect of your soul where you have trauma bonds or like shadows that are plaguing you, relationships that you can't break but are unhealthy for you, that kind of stuff. If you're experiencing that, um, there's work that needs to be done in order for you to improve. It's just telling you that, hey, here's some areas that you need to focus on. I mean, I have friends that are disassociative. I have friends that have schizophrenia,
Mm.
and um, I've watched their friend groups leave them and their family leave them when they like may have needed somebody the most to kind of back them up, but I didn't. I'm just like I'm like in it for the long haul. So loyal. And um I've watched my friends also come out of those things. So it's not that it's unforgivable. Like, even narcissism is repairable. It's just a lack of awareness for others, and it's a whole heap of self-love for yourself, so that's great. But if I was going to choose like somebody that's like NPD, 2% of the population narcissistic, or that's like a doormat empath that doesn't have any boundaries or whatever, like I'm going to look at both of them like, oh, like I don't want to be around either of you.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with the horseshoe method, but I horseshoe methoded the narcissist empath because at the end of the day, they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're so familiar with each other. They're so closely connected. we
Right.
really want to be in harmony. And I think that the Bible says it really well when it says that we should be in walking a straight and narrow path instead of the broad way, that
Right.
we should be walking the straight and narrow, which is basically in harmony with yourself and with others, because we're supposed to
Right.
love ourselves as we love others,
Right. So I
or
think
love others as yourself.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think in the Bible when it says walk the straight and narrow, I think it meant like start with yourself and it goes higher up to God, like just like straight up. I think that's where that came from. At least that's how I perceived it growing up. Like be one with yourself and it's and then
Mhm.
one with God. You know how, like you said, God's the head, or the Godhead, or however you want to put it. So and it like on a human body, the head is on the top. So I think, well, from my perception, that's what I got from it. Like be one with yourself and let that go to God. Like be one with being one with yourself is being one with God. That's yeah.
Mhm.
So like I said, I could be wrong, but that's how I interpret it,
Well,
which is
it's
which
this
is which
it's
is
this
good.
straight and narrow. Like it's really just being in harmony with yourself and with others, because we're all connected with each other, and then with God. And it's like I was saying about the husband and wife that are in divine union with each other, they're also connected in divine union with the heavenly realms as well. So
Right.
that's like a straight and narrow. Like they've achieved this like really beautiful dance that we have as we go through life.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Um, I have about 4 minutes.
I know. I was watching the time. I was watching the time. I mean, we can conclude. Listen, it's been a pleasure. And I look forward to being on your show if possible, or having you back as a guest. You can speak well, and that's always a plus in my book. And
I know I
I
could
can
talk
see,
forever.
yeah, I can see. We both talkers. That's another plus. But to the viewers that was watching, whether live or going to watch on the replay, if you haven't subscribed already, so go ahead and subscribe, and don't be afraid to jump over to Amelie's
Mhm.
page and subscribe to her channel as well. Um, Continue to like, share, and comment whenever I have shows. The next show I have is Thursday, so make sure you stay tuned with that. For that, hit the notification bell so you be notified. And Amelie, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And like I said, we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, and if you're interested in working with me, you can find me at Celestic Intelligence. You can email me at Amelie at celesticintelligence.com, and or you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and catch me there. I have a 8-week program called the Energy Mystic Spa, and
Mhm.
it's basically an energetic cleanse from start to finish to help you go from detoxing into building a really solid inner sanctuary. And so I would love to have you join if you're interested. And I'm currently onboarding for that. So, but thank you, Desmond, for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. This has been really
Appreciate you.
fun, and I always love a good conversation. It's been a pleasure.
All right. I appreciate you. Like I said, we'll stay in touch. But
Yeah, sounds
go ahead
good.
and get to your dance class.
Yes, I gotta go dance. All right, thank you.
I have a good one. You're welcome.